And the title with the organization that you work with.
Eleanor Acer, Senior Refugee Protection Director at Human Rights First.
What is the purpose of you being in Tijuana today?
Well, we're here as human rights observers to witness the Trump administration's policy of returning asylum seekers to Mexico, which is a violation of U.S. law. Well, we're documenting what's happening and advocating in Washington, urging the U.S. Congress to hold the Trump administration accountable and to demand that they start following the laws that Congress passed and process asylum seekers in accordance with U.S. law. Well, first of all, our law requires the United States to accept asylum seekers and to process them and assess their protection requests. But secondly, the United States has the capacity to process more asylum seekers at its ports of entry. It has simply reduced the numbers through a process it calls quote-unquote metering. But it's simply creating bottlenecks and backups into Mexico.
So how big is the reduction, do you think, on the number of people they are allowing to request asylum in the U.S.?
Yeah, if you look at the statistics, actually the number of people who have been allowed to request asylum at official ports of entry has dropped. At the same time, that then ends up encouraging illegal crossings between ports of entry. We certainly have received a lot of disturbing reports of Mexican immigration officers working at the behest of the United States and in some cases turning refugees away from its southern border. But it's certainly a positive development for Mexico to be taking steps to extend protection to people who are seeking refuge and who are fleeing from persecution. We welcome the Mexican government doing more to provide refuge to people fleeing from harm. I think the Mexicans, have a strong affinity for human rights, and they should be setting an example for the United States of how to uphold human rights.
Do that makes this position of the Mexican government makes your job easier or more complicated? Because it's in some ways kind of contradictory.
I will tell you right now, I can't figure out what the position of the Mexican government actually is. Initially there were these announcements that the Mexican government had agreed to this illegal policy. Now the Mexican government is saying it's not agreeing, but clearly it's Mexican officers every day that are restricting the ability of people seeking asylum to actually approach a U.S. port of entry. And it's Mexican officers who are facilitating the return of refugees in violation of our asylum laws. So Mexico is definitely involved in this process, even if they didn't sign a formal agreement.